Welcome to The Explainer. I am so incredibly excited about our topic today. We are going to master a literally legendary recipe from Thailand. Authentic, deeply flavorful, and perfectly tender Thai heavenly pork, also known as Moo Sawan. If you love sweet and savory flavor profiles packed with aromatic spices, well, you are in for an absolute treat today.
But before we get to the finished plate, let me ask you something. Have you ever tried making homemade pork jerky only to end up with something that feels, well, kind of like shoe leather? You know the feeling, right? You put in all this work, you wait for hours, and the result is just way too tough to actually chew. It's a massive disappointment. Well, the good news is by following this foolproof masterclass, we can leave that frustration entirely in the past. Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our 4-step roadmap to perfect, glossy, and tender jerky. Choosing and slicing the pork, building that flavorful marinade, mastering the traditional sun-drying process, and finally, a cold oil frying secret that is absolutely going to change the way you cook. Section 1. Choosing and slicing pork. This is all about setting the foundation for tenderness.
You know, perfect jerky actually starts way before it ever hits the pan. The source recommends asking your butcher for the hip, ham, sirloin, or shoulder. And once you have your pork, preparation is literally everything. The key here is to wash the meat thoroughly and then meticulously trim away all the fascia, membranes, and excess fat. That connective tissue, that is exactly what turns into unchewable rubber later on. Getting rid of the whole shebang is your very first secret to a perfectly soft chew.
Okay, so once your meat is beautifully trimmed, hold on, don't just grab your knife and start hacking away. The source material gives us a genius little trick here. Pop the trimmed pork right into the freezer for a bit. Now, you don't want it frozen solid like a brick, but you do want the surface to become quite firm. This chilling process stabilizes the meat, which makes precise, ultra-thin slicing just so much easier. When it comes to the actual slicing, you might instinctively think you should cut across the grain, kind of like you do with a steak. But for Moo Sawan, the right way is actually to slice along the grain. That preserves that classic jerky structure so it doesn't just fall apart. And the real magic for tenderness here is the thickness. The target is exactly 2 millimeters thick, no more, no less. And hey, if you aren't comfortable doing this at home, just ask your local butcher to run it through their slicer for you. Moving right along to section 2, the flavorful marinade. Time to build that signature sweet and aromatic profile. This marinade is literally a symphony of flavors. For sweetness, the recipe uses a blend of unbleached cane sugar and rich palm sugar. For those deep umami and savory notes, we're combining soy sauce, oyster sauce, seasoning sauce, fish sauce, and just a tiny pinch of salt. A splash of sesame oil adds this incredibly beautiful aroma. And finally, the spices, coarsely pounded coriander and cumin seeds. Oh, and here's a pro tip from the source. You don't need to pre-roast these seeds because they're going to get beautifully toasted when we fry the pork later. Now, this isn't the kind of marinade where you just give it a quick stir with a spoon and walk away. You really have to get hands-on. The instruction is super clear. Massage all those seasonings directly into the pork. If your palm sugar is a bit stubborn or hard, you might want to dissolve all the marinade ingredients together first before adding the meat. But the ultimate goal here is to knead that pork until every single sugar crystal dissolves and all that glorious savory liquid is physically absorbed right into the meat fibers. This hands-on technique is exactly what guarantees maximum juiciness in every single bite. To finish up the marinade process, you're going to toss in those coarsely pounded coriander and cumin seeds right at the end. Give it a thorough mix so every slice gets an even coating of those spices. Then wrap your bowl tightly with plastic wrap and let it rest in the normal compartment of your fridge for at least 1 hour. Resting the meat, completely non-negotiable. It allows those aromatic spices to deeply penetrate the thin slices of pork, locking all that amazing flavor right inside. All right, section 3, the sun-drying process. This is how we preserve the meat without hardening it. So looking at the timeline, at 0 hours, the goal is to lay each slice completely flat on a drying tray under strong, direct sunlight. You want to make sure none of the pieces are folded over on themselves. Oh, and if you have insects buzzing around, simply use a food net cover. At the 1 hour mark, you need to go out there and flip every piece of meat so it dries evenly on both sides. And by the 2 hour mark, and I mean at the absolute maximum, it is time to bring that tray inside. So the absolutely crucial point here is captured perfectly in this quote from our source. Don't over-dry it or the pork will be hard when fried. Keep it pliable. I can't stress this enough. This is where people make the biggest mistake. Depending on how intense your sun is that day, it might actually take way less than 2 hours. We aren't trying to make beef jerky leather here. You're literally just trying to dry the surface. The meat should still feel soft, flexible, and fully pliable when you bring it inside. And finally, Section 4, the cold oil frying secret. This is the ultimate masterclass technique. Now, what's really interesting here is how this step completely flips standard cooking logic totally on its head. Usually we wait for oil to get shimmering hot before we fry, right? Well, scratch that for Moo Sawan. If you drop this sugar-coated pork into hot oil, it instantly seizes up into tough, unchewable meat. Instead, dropping the pork directly into cold oil over medium-low heat and letting the temperature come up gradually alongside the meat, that is the ultimate secret to keeping it incredibly tender and juicy. As the oil slowly heats up and starts bubbling, you might be really tempted to just constantly stir the pork. Don't do it. Stirring too much will agitate the sugars and cause them to crystallize right on the meat. You want to stir very, very sparingly. Your only focus should just be gently scraping the bottom of the pan so that the natural sugars don't stick and burn against the direct heat of the burner.
Let's quickly summarize these frying rules because they are absolute game changers. Use plenty of oil on medium-low heat. Do not wait for the oil to get hot before adding the meat. Next, you absolutely must remove the pork from the oil before it looks entirely done. Because of the high sugar content, the residual heat will actually continue to cook and darken the pork even after it's out of the pan. If you wait until it looks perfect in the pan, it's going to be burnt on the plate. And lastly, if you're frying a second batch, remember to turn off the gas and let the oil cool down completely before starting over. And when you follow those steps, oh man, the result is it's a beautifully glossy, perfectly tender, sweet and salty bite packed with aromatic, toasted spices. The coriander and cumin have completely bloomed in the oil. The sugar has caramelized to this deep, rich color without burning. And because we sliced it perfectly, marinated it deeply, dried it carefully, and fried it gently, a tough chew is literally impossible. It's soft, incredibly flavorful, and just ridiculously appetizing.
So, the only question left for you is this. Are you going to make this tender, heavenly pork as an amazing treat for your family? Or are you going to use this foolproof recipe to start a brand new business? Because honestly, this technique yields professional, market-ready results every single time. Let us know what you decide to do with this newfound masterclass knowledge. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and happy cooking.